Well,
Like
it has.
Oh, I need to agree, but.
We should keep that.
Hello, just want to make sure that Director Rainbow will hear us and vice versa.
One.
Is he
Hear me, Director Rainbow?
Bang.
I can't hear a thing.
Oh, dear. I'll go on mute for a minute. Hey, are you hearing?
Trying to get. Set up.
Something like that, it was like something before non-market change.
Oh, so it'll actually be higher because we estimated 3% non-market change. And I think it even came in at 2. So like the actual full tax rate is like 8.7.
Right.
Increase. And then it'll probably sit at 6.7.
We're not there yet. We're, small towns that were behind you guys. I think it was only a couple of years ago that you guys advanced your process, right?
This is the second year that we've done it. Which is good in many ways, but it's also, so we had to do a budget amendment this week because you can't incorporate your carry forwards if you do it by December. You have to, by the time Q1 is done, you can actually see what your carry forwards are.
Right.
Then you have to do a budget amendment. And we already we're planning for another spring.
Thanks.
We know that there are some.
Share, Director Rainbow,
I'm
I'm not sure you can hear me, but if you can hear me, I sent you a chat as well. If you can, Natalie's trying to reach you so that she can help you.
Kind of wish we were a little further, I think, on that schedule. Like beginning of May.
It's hard to get a project.
There's always such a carryover for us for projects anyway. It's never like,
Yeah, you're
we're
never.
always working on master's projects anyway. So-
We do have quorum without Director Rainbow.
All right, would you like me to proceed and into order? Are people ready? We do have quorum. So I would like to call this committee of the whole meeting to order and acknowledge that. There's Director Rainbow. Good,
Hello?
good. I hear you. Are you hearing us?
Well, why can't I hear anything?
I believe he's
I've got,
talking to
oh,
Natalie.
I'm not muted.
Considering percent non-market growth. I don't think we're.
Oh, God, I don't know. Oh, can you? Oh, it says I'm.
We've kind of done a bit of a different process this year and a lot more bottom up. Starting that these are desired service levels, this, in the past, I found we went right into lines. Line items, how much we're spending on IT, how much we're spending.
I think I should proceed and and do the acknowledgement.
Let's type that here.
Staff help Director Rainbow. So I will call the meeting to order as I already did. And recognize that we are on the traditional territory of the Scotland people. Our regional district is committed to positive communications and relationships with all of our First Nations neighbors. Cookshdom. And the next item is to approve the agenda. Can I have a motion, please? From Director Mack, seconded by Director Demare. Anyone opposed? Any additions? Motion carried. And now we move to the very exciting regional moment. I'll turn it over to Director Richmond for the Village of Pemberton.
I think Natalie's got us a little presentation here. Natalie, so I thought I would chat a little bit more about our OCP review. You can go right to the next slide. And so what Natalie's going to take us through really quickly as I chat is just one of our communication, sort of a cut and paste of some of our slideshows, and it's a bit of our engagement plan. I don't have to tell this group why an OCP is so important. I never thought 10, 15 years ago that I'd be so excited about creating policy. Honestly, I never really thought that. But the OCP is very, very cool, as most of us know. And it's coming at a really interesting time for Pemberton because, as we all know, we've grown 30-some%. You know, when I moved here in '90, there was less than 450 people living in town. You know, I teased Russell about the ice truck, but you know, we've seen a ton of change, haven't we, Natalie? We've seen a ton of change, and I think a lot of positive change. But we can get into that debate all the way through. So we're in the middle of all that now, and having an OCP review at this time, I think, is really, really key. We heard a ton about growth during the election and how you support it and how you manage it and what it looks like. You know, during the election and since and well before, I've been really trying to get the message out to people that this is their chance to shape that, to create that North Star for Pemberton that we could follow and that we could move towards. And so it comes at a really interesting time, and we've always had a very engaged community and people are really responding. So yeah, I'm just going to take 5 minutes and just take you really quickly through some of our engagement process and what it's looked like. Maybe go to the next one. Yeah, I think that's all fairly known information for all you guys. Maybe one more, please, Natalie. So yeah, I mean, it's a slow process. We know that too. We look to be done in the spring of 2024. And again, all those of us that have been through, we know that it's an amazing dynamic process. You know, we talk about engagement all the time. In my mind, there's no engagement more important than around the OCP, and it's so broad. And you're trying to get, I think one of the biggest challenges about the OCP engagement is you're really trying to get people to take that 10,000-foot view and really think broad and future. Maybe I'll get into that a little bit more, but starting at that point, engaging properly, managing, making sure that the engagement is actually working, gathering it all, you know, sort of putting it in a digestible form and then seeing if you get it right. And again, I'll get back to that in a second, and then, you know, presenting that and then making all the changes and things that you didn't get right. So all that all the way through takes a couple of years, which is challenging because there's a lot of things happening right now. A lot of developments coming through the door right now. We have a couple applications at the table that represent real change for Pemberton. One of them that's been proposed, that's been in the news, is a dorm style. It's a live share project. It's a small, it's not a huge lot, but it would be 61 units, I believe. And they would be like 300-400 square feet. Little pods, you can have a hot plate and hotel fridge, very small, and then shared cooking space, shared social space, all that sort of thing. It would allow entry level around $800 rents. So, you know, probably most geared not towards any specific demographic, but probably most appropriate for youth entering the job market, leaving home, that sort of thing, that want to stick around, which is something we don't have here around. You know, your cheapest apartment is $1,800 for a small apartment. So how does a 19-year-old
who wants to stay in Pemberton, not go to school, whatever. So this would provide a different level of housing. Of course, it comes with a request to vary parking requirements, and it's a part of town that's already congested with parking issues. So it's raised, not only a lot of concern with people, but I bring it up because as part of this, because it represents change for us. If we go with something like this, the affordable housing that we've been working with Sea to Sky, that represents change, extra storage, different style. This would represent change. And it's just really, really interesting as it ties into all this, because before this process and during this process, we talk about how we have to grow as Pemberton. What does gentle densification look like? And everybody nods their heads and agrees that we have to and we need to. And then when we start to get into it and people realize what that's going to look like and how that does represent change, that's when the concerns really start to happen. So, in our last council meeting, when talking about this, my comments were, at what point are we drawing lines? At what point do we make bold change? We need to, as a council and as a community, wrap our heads around the fact that when we talk about densification, it means a carriage house in your neighborhood, a triplex where there wasn't before for you, or a higher density building with less parking in your neighborhood, whatever. It means not necessarily all those things at once, but it represents a lot of those, and we need to figure out when and how we wrap our heads around that. So as it ties back to this, I think it's really, really interesting. We already have a really engaged community, but this is bringing people out big time. Next slide, please. So we have kitchen table discussions. They've already been gathered now. So packages were handed out with guides for people to take home amongst friends, get together, and you get entered in a competition if you host one and that sort of thing. But it would allow for casual conversation, really honest conversation, but guided through the packages. I don't know how many we ended up collecting. We collected them last Friday or maybe even this past Monday. And so I'm not sure how many we got. I know that a lot were picked up at the office, so hopefully a lot were completed, but we'll see what that number looks like. Next slide, please. So the discussion guides within the kitchen table and some of the framework that we've used in our different engagement has been around 4 themes: reconciliation, housing, the economy, and environmental and sustainability, which also incorporates emergency response and that, which are the 4 big boxes within our strategic priorities. So we've tied it back to that a little bit, but those are the 4 big pillars in the discussion guide. And again, it's really interesting and challenging to get people talking, thinking broadly, but focused at the same time. It's really interesting. Next slide, please. So actually, next one. So we did an open house on March 6th. We had about 170 people attend live, which is a pretty good little number for a midweek night. They were there. It started at 4 o'clock and it went till about 7:30 and started with a little presentation. I opened it up, and then we went to we broke into tables and discussed those 4. There was 4 tables with the 4 pillars that I went through earlier. And then we break, switch tables, move around, that sort of thing. And our contractor on this is Urban Systems. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. So between them and staff, and we had tons of staff out. And they just watching the interaction with staff and residents on it was so awesome. Like, staff were really into it. The conversations are great, whether at the table or just milling around. People would have stayed. Well, they did stay, but they would have stayed even longer, past 8 o'clock if we didn't get kicked out. People were really into it. Next slide, please. And then we've done a number of youth engagements. So I went to the one at the French school and opened that and worked with the kids there. I didn't go to Signal Hill Elementary because it was last month when we were sitting here on Wednesday, but it went well. And next, in a week and a half, we're at the high school, and like your communities, we have amazing kids here, and so far, I'm really looking for to the high school, but the elementary school was, they were awesome. Kids were awesome. It's funny, I started at the French school, I was all excited, I went in there and I started speaking in French. And one of the kids, like within 2 seconds, went, "Hey, no, this is English class." And I went, "Really? I've been thinking about this in French. I never talk about the OCP in French. Like, this is a great," and they're like, "No," the kids protested. And then we talked about the same sort of direction, but this is your chance. What, talking to kids about what their town could look like in 20 years, tell them what it looks like next year. That's like, wow, let's think about that. And it's hilarious because some of the things that come out of from kids are just funny to start with, but it's also funny that some of the parallels there were, because you get this a lot from adults. One of the first thing out of the first kid's mouth was, "We want a pool." The first thing, right then, I'm like, your parents probably said the same thing. But some great conversations at the schools. The high school, I'm really looking forward to. I spend a fair bit of time at the high school, so I like teenagers, and I think it's going to be really cool. I know our kids around here, and I think there's a bunch that are going to get really involved. I've had a few actually one-on-ones with some of the high school kids, trying to stir up some interest. So yeah, it should be really, really cool. I look forward to that. Next slide. Yeah, there's not much more on this here. It's just our next steps. Again, one of the hard things is getting people to look at that 10,000-foot view. When we get into it, many people will immediately want to gravitate towards that single biggest concern that they have right there. So maybe that new development that I was just describing, or maybe it's a recreational need or whatever it is. So sometimes it's just about the immediate, what's in front of them. People grab this as an opportunity to connect with us and make statements and voice concerns. So trying to guide that and be part of the conversation, be a fly on the wall at some of these, but also get engaged because they look over you and they want to talk to you while you're there, and get people again to go, okay, think broader, think broader than that. Let's start with here, and we'll bring it back down a little bit to narrow or to lower to the ground. But that's been really interesting because, like I say, some people are really focused on, the dog park next to their property or whatever it is, and not necessarily seeing the big picture right away. But then we get there and the conversation spreads, and now the challenge, as is to bring it back down to an OCP level, something that you can put on paper. And as I talked to the contractors and staff after our last open house, they're like, "Yeah, we'll get it wrong. We're going to get it wrong. We always do." But that's part of the fun part of the process, is bringing it back. But this is what we heard. Did we get it right? Oh, we missed that. Oh, we misheard that. Okay, and then refining it and working. So looking forward to all the next steps. Our community, as always, has been crazy engaged. But again, especially at this crucial time, it's been really interesting. So that's what I was going to share with you. It is. It's so.
Thank you. Thank you. Director Pettingill
Yeah, thanks.
and Director Rainbow.
Great work. I have two questions. One, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but the four themes, where did those come from?
We didn't want to talk, we talked about it because they're pretty broad themes, and I think they're pretty relevant. It was so environmental, reconciliation, economy, and housing growth, smart growth, which are, we didn't want to tie it back to our strategic pillars because that's our plan, right? So, but we wanted a starting place to say, here's some of the general, here's the big circles, here's the big buckets. And so those are the four we went with. They were, I don't say they're randomly picked, they were picked through what we thought were the biggest concerns.
Okay, and are you within those, are you providing backgrounders, or this is why we think these things are important, and then how do you think this applies, or were people just sort of given the sort of broad definition of the themes and they decide if they're important or how or why?
A little bit of both. So some background in terms of why we chose it. So at the beginning of the open house, we explained a little bit of the rationale behind and explained that we're not restricted. These are far from being the opposite of being restrictive. They're starting points, and we can go anywhere with them. And then we just approached it very broadly. And again, people would, housing and growth, housing and smart growth, that one pillar, I mean, people would, I've sat at a few tables now on the same conversation. Some people start way over here, some people start way over there. So yeah, we've managed to just sort of broadly lay it out and let people run with it. And that's what I say, but the hard part is kind of bringing it all back into, tight information.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. I see Director Rainbow and then Director Hopwell.
Unmute.
You're on mute, Tony.
There we go. Sorry about that. I was just saying thanks very much for the presentation. I was struck by your enthusiasm in general. The excitement sort of really came over as you were speaking, and I also really like the comments you made about kids, and like the fact that you've engaged not just the secondary kids but elementary kids as well. And sort of speaking, I'll speak as an advocate for youth, which I've been for years, and that I would say that as you go forward, I think what you should do is find ways to keep kids involved in so that they feel they're involved in a very meaningful way. Because if you get that age group behind you in this project, just keep in mind, to be cynical if you like, in 2 or 3 years time, they're going to be voting. They're going to be people that are going to have a real say in decisions. So involve them now, get them sort of committed to their town, and it will pay off for you in the future.
No, I totally agree, Tony. I mean, I've been coaching for 20 years. I didn't know, but that's my voting base. But no, it's funny because I said to our community, I'm really looking forward to the high school visit. And I've been saying it for a few weeks to my communication staff, saying, I've been at the high school coaching for so many years and doing a bunch of different things that I'm as accessible as a mayor to the teenagers as you're going to get, so to speak. Not all of them love me, that's for sure. And some of them that I've coached are scared of me. So, but most of them like me, and I'm accessible, and they see me as a regular, they see me as a coach first when I'm there. And so to make the connection with them is easy. Like, I'm in a good place to start that conversation. And yeah, you don't have to advocate for how smart teenagers are. I'm well aware. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Thank you.
Beautiful, Director Hopwell, and then I saw Director Stoner had her hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, great presentation. I too, like Tony, I love the youth engagement. That's so important. And I also like the project initiation of low-cost housing for young people that want to stay there, or people that just want to work, play, and stay. That's a great initiative, and I'd love to hear more about that. And as for the pool, I hear Pemberton is busing them to Lillooet. So that's great, because we need the revenue. So too bad that Whistler's, filled.
I'll make that suggestion. I don't know how well it'll go over, but I'll make that suggestion.
Well, actually, I hear they're already planning it. So that's
right.
great. Yeah. Anyways, great presentation. Thanks.
And Director Stoner.
Thanks. Thank you for the presentation. It's super exciting. And yes, it's a little bit nerdy, but OCP policy really does matter. We all know that. I'm just curious, what is the outward looking time frame for the current OCP, and when was the last OCP done?
The last review was done, I want to say 2011.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a 20-year, like.
We're looking at 20-year view, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're, ideally, as I say, it's a 5-year review. It takes 2 years. How does a small town, how does any small town do that? I mean, even bigger towns say, how do you do that every 3 years? Right?
Every 3 years.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, I see Director Demare. Go ahead, Sal.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, excellent presentation. And I also went to Early Elementary School, we've got 3 kids. But we got a fantastic teacher. And so I gave why we're doing the OCP, what it was all about, and so on and so forth. So they got a huge board, and she already had it ready to go, and they started making a mural about, I'd say anywhere from 4 to 5 feet by 7, 8 feet. And it's on the website, SLRD website for OCP. But they actually put, their mural was what they wanted to see and have. It was really, really neat going through that process. Yeah. Yesterday, they had the school district they're going to all the various schools and doing an infrastructure improvement upgrade program where they're trying to identify what needs to be done in all these schools. I got a message from Debbie saying that the kids were unbelievable with what they wanted to see. I think the combination of those two things there just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
That they're engaged.
Excellent. Right at the beginning, Director Richmond, did you say 16 units or 61?
61.
Wow, that's terrific.
Well, nothing's gone through, and I was using it as an example of the change we're seeing and how it applies to, what we're putting into this OCP. But yeah, it hasn't gone through yet. It's a hot topic.
I just wanted to check my own hearing on that. That's terrific. Very nice presentation. Very good process. Thank you. From my screen, I'm not seeing other questions. Are there any other questions or comments? Well, yeah, CAO Dalton, hello.
Thank you. If it's appropriate, can I offer a comment on you spoke about, there was a question about themes and how they related to and you mentioned your strat plan and thinking about facilitating some strat planning for the board. I've always been interested in, not always, but I've been interested in OCPs, any form of community plan, and how they relate, these long-term plans relate to the short-term actions of a board or council. And this notion of spending all this time, effort, community engagement, and work on a document that envisions what the future might look like, and some, maybe more obvious than other paths to get there. And how times that work gets done and parked, and then everybody goes back to their day job. And I just find it, really, really interesting to think about how these types of efforts and pieces of work can then inform the mandate of a board like this. And I just wanted to share that because when we move into some short, sharp strategic planning sessions with the board shortly, we're going to suggest that the board go back to that RGS and think about that long-term vision and the perspective that, what could a board do with its 4-year mandate to not to be locked into that vision because things change, but to use that sort of, and I think you used that North Star comment. So I think from a planning, not a community planning geek perspective, but a strategist geek, planning geek perspective, I think there's huge potential in these types of exercises to bring a coherence to and a bit of discipline might be too strong a word to the process of moving communities forward.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Lovely.
I guess doesn't quite work the same way, but that's maybe a lunchtime conversation.
Yeah, I'm going through it as you're talking, looking back at it.
I'd like to suggest a 10-minute recess, please. And what I have on my clock is 9:33. So we'll go to 9:43. And I think by then perhaps we'll have Chair Ford back or not. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's where the RGS sort of.
We're gonna meet.
we are. Thank you.
Welcome back, Chair Ford. I'm struggling along here. I'm grateful for Zoom. I certainly wouldn't be there in the room with you guys. I'm feverish. Oh,
Okay. We are back. Lori, Tony, Viv, could you please confirm that you can see and hear us?
I'm here. Thank you.
I'm here as well, thanks.
Thank you,
Yeah, I can hear you.
everybody. Okay, so, and Jack will be joining us as soon as he can. All right. We are going, could I have someone move that we go into closed? Moved by Director Mack.
Sorry, under section.
Under section
2.
92B. Seconded by Director Richmond. Any opposed or all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.